This video is sponsored by Squarespace. In a recent short on my channel, I made a video explaining why I thought cold showers were a little bit overrated. That turned out to be one of the most controversial videos on my channel ever. Oopsie poopsie. Probably not by coincidence though, it was also one of my most watched videos. And because shorts really don't allow for nuance, I wanted to expand on that point and explain why I genuinely do think cold showers are a little bit overhyped. That isn't to say they can't be beneficial for some people, and if you find them useful, of course I don't think you should stop doing them, but I wanted to explain why I think that assessing all of the research out there, I stand by this point, and it's not just a hot take. And I also want to explain why I think that this points to larger issues with biohacking in general, and why I think many of these health trends and fitness trends really are just fads or perhaps a little bit overstated, and why we can't just extrapolate from one or two studies or even a large body of evidence and then say we need to engage in this behavior to get these results. It's rarely that simple when you look at the broader context of your lifestyle, so let's dive right in. I'm getting very wet out here. Gonna head into the sauna. Firstly, if you do get benefits from cold showers, then absolutely you should keep taking them. There's more than enough evidence to suggest that you're feeling more than a placebo, and so I wouldn't want to ruin that for anybody. This is also not an attack on anyone. I love Andrew Huberman, I love Wim Hof. The Wim Hof method is awesome, and cold exposure can be really useful, as we'll get to later. It's just that cold showers on their own don't have quite as much research backing them as you might think. The issue is more with the way that cold showers are presented as this kind of cure-all for everything, and that if you're not doing them, then the only possible explanation is that you must be a wuss. I really disagree with that, and you shouldn't feel bad if you don't get any benefits from them, because actually, like I say, there's not a huge amount of evidence to suggest that you necessarily would. In response to my short, a few people said that I was obviously ignorant of the research, and I wanted to make this video partly to demonstrate that that's really not the case. If there's one thing you can rely on me to do, is to do all of the reading and all of the watching on a topic like this. It's just that I've come to different conclusions, and I think that when I get to the end of this video, you might see my perspective. So feel free to disagree with me, and obviously let me know in the comments down below, but please do watch the video all the way through before you make up your mind if that's what you want to do. And I think this speaks to broader issues with the whole concept of biohacking, of looking at a couple of studies that seem to demonstrate something is unequivocally good, and then applying it to humans and saying that we should do this all the time, every day without exception. It just doesn't really work like that, as we're going to see. So I'll start by recapping what I said in the short, the benefits of cold showers. Cold showers are really popular because they're supposed to do everything from improving your immune system, to raising testosterone, to burning more fat and increasing brown fat and raising your metabolism, to waking you up and making you feel energized in the morning, to boosting your mood, reducing inflammation and enhancing recovery, just about everything you can think of under the sun. But although all of these assertions are based on research and studies, there are some issues with them, as we're about to see. So let's start with the first. Firstly, the testosterone gains are questionable. Research is limited and inconclusive. There are some promising studies, but they largely focus on ice baths, not just cold showers, and even those show relatively small effects. Full body immersive, they're far colder, they're an entirely different story. Even one of the studies that is most commonly cited as evidence that cold exposure could increase your testosterone actually only showed a link between increased testosterone in men with testicular varicocele. This is a condition affecting the blood vessels around the genital region, and it affects about 10% of men. So if you're perfectly healthy and you don't have this issue, then you're even less likely to see any benefits from taking a really cold shower. Another study found no link at all, so hardly conclusive. Anyways, to me, all of these supplements and hacks that aim at increasing testosterone are a little bit misguided anyways. After all, if you're increasing testosterone within the normal range, if you don't already have some kind of really low testosterone issue, then you're unlikely to see huge differences to your muscle building, to the way you feel, etc. People wanted to be more alpha, and a lot of good marketing I think has led to this kind of wild goose chase of people trying to raise their testosterone and not really getting much to show for it. Do you like the biohacker shades, by the way? I think they make me look like Tony Stark. I am Iron Man. Kind of love them. So how about that dopamine? Some commenters told me off for not talking about this. That's where the real value of cold showers comes in after all. Studies show that a cold shower can raise your dopamine levels by up to 250%. And this effect lasts for hours. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter most associated with motivation and reward, and more of it generally equates to greater productivity and more alertness. One person who commented on that short pointed out to me that dopamine levels had been shown in one study to rise by equivalent to the amount of dopamine spiked by taking cocaine. I pointed out to them that this was kind of like defeating their own argument, because I invite you to go and take a cold shower and then make a note of how that feels. Then go and take some cocaine and take a note of how that feels. Do not take cocaine. I did not just tell you to take cocaine. Now compare if there's any difference. I think you'll find that the cold shower, while maybe makes you feel more alert, it's not quite on the same level as cocaine. But this study is actually one of the most often cited as proof that taking cold showers can massively spike your dopamine and increase your alertness and focus, so I thought it was worth looking into it a little bit further. And this is a perfect example of how a study can be taken out of context, because the actual study, which I paid for and downloaded so I could look at it properly, you're welcome, wasn't even looking at things like focus and productivity. Dopamine wasn't the main thing they were studying, and of course, yet again, the study was looking at cold exposure via ice baths, not via cold showers. As we said already, that's an entirely different thing, and whether the spike would be anywhere similar in a cold shower is really not self-evident. At the same time, that 250% might still sound amazing, but if we're logical about it and we really assess the study, we find out that it doesn't necessarily point to all that much, because that dopamine increase was found when looking at plasma levels of dopamine. That means the amount of dopamine in the blood, and this doesn't necessarily point to a massive increase in available dopamine that can affect brain function, because the body produces dopamine in many different areas, and not all of these can affect the brain because they can't cross the blood-brain barrier. Furthermore, dopamine is going to have a different effect on you depending on what part of the brain it's in and how many receptor sites you have there. So, for example, another study found that caffeine could boost dopamine levels by 8% in the striatum. That's a specific part of the brain associated with things like focus and motor control, so that shows us how and why caffeine can affect things like focus, and that used positron tomography to determine this. It is highly likely that with a massive spike like that, you can have some impact on your focus and your attention, but it's not as huge as we might think, and especially when we consider that things like caffeine can also spike dopamine. At the same time, so can many other things we engage in. Spending time with loved ones can increase dopamine, sleep can increase dopamine, eating can increase dopamine, especially chocolate. Having a warm bath can increase dopamine. So just because this study shows that an ice bath can massively increase dopamine, not just in the brain, and a cold shower might be able to increase it a little bit, perhaps in the brain, that doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it, because all sorts of things affect dopamine levels, and a study like this just can't capture the complexity and the nuance of how something like a cold shower would fit into our lifestyle. But now if you take a commute to work and you get into an altercation with a fellow commuter, if there's traffic, if you're stressed, maybe if you stub your toe or just feeling tired, then that's going to alter this neurochemical cocktail that you work so hard to cultivate. It's going to affect it. Similarly, we can look at the studies that show cold exposure may be a method to increase brown fat and thereby to burn fat. Brown fat plays a key role in generating heat and maintaining body temperature. This process is energy hungry, so brown fat is rich in mitochondria and can theoretically increase fat burning and weight loss. Some studies do show a potential link between increased cold exposure and increased brown fat. This makes sense when you consider that brown fat is there to keep you warmer. It's a logical adaptation to being cold more often. But again, these studies focused on a much more intensive form of cold exposure. One study, for example, had participants expose themselves to cold temperatures for 2 hours at a time. But the issue is that, once again, this isn't likely to make much of an impact on your weight loss anyway. Studies show that even as we increase brown fat, it doesn't have much impact on calories burned throughout the day. If you're going into this thinking it's a cheat code for losing weight, you're going to be very much disappointed. I rather suggest focusing on diet and exercise instead. Another big one for cold exposure is inflammation, and once again, many of the same issues persist. Those being that the evidence isn't really there, and it's not necessarily an unqualified net benefit, even if it were. Can a cold shower reduce inflammation? According to a study called Can Water Temperature and Immersion Time Influence the Effects of Cold Water Immersion on Muscle Soreness? The answer is yes. But to actually quote the study, cold water exposure can be slightly better than passive recovery in the management of muscle soreness. So not exactly a rave review. And if you're using cold showers to treat DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, then know that this will also impair your hypertrophy. Again, there are studies to back this up. We know that ibuprofen, for example, can prevent you from building muscle, and in a similar way, because cold exposure suppresses inflammation, and we need inflammation to build muscle, regular cold exposure can decrease muscle building. This is mainly an issue if you take a cold shower after a workout, but that's something to keep in mind. And that brings me to perhaps the most controversial point from my short. It seems a lot of people are using cold showers to strengthen their discipline, or something. The theory goes like this. If you can force yourself to take a cold shower, you can train your discipline like a muscle and thereby conquer whatever challenge the day has in store. It's just like we all have that friend who was unable to motivate themselves to do anything. They couldn't write that book or start that workout program. Then they started taking cold showers and suddenly their life turned around. Before we knew it, they were running things. Oh no, wait a second, that's not a thing. I think that might have been the film Limitless. If anything, I think techniques like this can be used as a form of procrastination almost. People convince themselves that they're making progress because they're taking cold showers or reading some self-help book, but they never actually do the push-ups or the writing or the work that would get them the results. I perhaps made a mistake by choosing to say that willpower is a finite resource. I was trying to explain that by forcing yourself to take a cold shower every morning, you'd actually be using up your willpower for the actually useful things later in that day. Got some angry responses as people reminded me you could train your willpower and that the notion of willpower being a finite resource was no longer accepted owing to some recent studies that cast doubt on it. In fact, it was pretty strange just how upset people got at that idea.
You come out with stink like that, poop mouth, get out, poop out of your mouth.
Garth, if I were to give you some money out of my wallet, would that ease the pain?
But I think wording aside, this does hold up. Firstly, let's be fair, because there's also no consensus that discipline can be trained like a muscle. There are plenty of people who say that, and there are some studies that suggest this is possible, but there are equally several studies that show it isn't. The general view being that we need more research. So let's not throw stones in glass houses. One paper discussed a large multi-site study that attempted to replicate the effects of self-controlled training on various self-controlled tasks, but found no clear evidence supporting the idea that training self-control led to improvements in self-control performance. In fact, this whole idea comes from the strength model of willpower that was proposed by Roy Baumeister and colleagues. The idea is also predicated on the idea that willpower can be depleted or exhausted with use. Otherwise, what were we training to improve, right? I suspect that what's actually going on here is that people can learn to use certain coping techniques, metacognitive strategies, to overcome difficult challenges, and they can practice this. This is a useful skill, and one that would likely result in new neural pathways forming over time. So yeah, it holds up. The notion that discipline can be drained over time is essentially what's known as decision fatigue. This itself is a subcategory of ego depletion. And while it's true that the concept of ego depletion has been called into question, it is by no means definitively false, and I think it just makes a lot of common sense. Willpower and focus take energy. Energy is finite. You're significantly less likely to engage in extra work of an evening if your day preceding was particularly tiring and stressful. Likewise, I feel that forcing yourself to have a cold shower is actually just putting yourself through an unnecessarily unpleasant experience first thing in the morning, making the whole day feel harder. Now I know this isn't true for everybody. Some people told me they love taking cold showers, but I put it to them that they are no longer training willpower in that case. I train my willpower all the time every time I go to the gym and complete that last rep. I can use the same metacognitive techniques there, so I'm already training my discipline. It doesn't need more training, and certainly not right before I actually want to use it. My day starts at 6 AM with changing nappies, making breakfast, playing with the kids. I then only have like 10 minutes to get ready for work, and at that point I just want to have a nice warm shower. Not everything has to be hard, not everything has to be an example of how tough you are. It is fine to just relax and indulge sometimes. In fact, it's necessary for optimum performance. So give yourself a break. You're still a tough guy, I promise. Another area where cold showers could be beneficial is in boosting the immune system, but again, it's complicated. We know that cold exposure increases the production of white blood cells. However, these studies once again are conducted using full-body cold water immersion. As far as actual cold showers go, I could only find one study that produced a direct link. This study relied on self-reports, which of course aren't terribly reliable. I probably deserve that. This study found a 29% reduction in self-reported sick leave, which does sound good, until you consider that the same study found no difference in actual incidence of illness. Yet it is often cited as proof that cold showers boost immunity. There are also promising studies looking at the use of saunas and sauna baths, so it's possible that a regular hot shower or bath could theoretically improve immunity too. So whilst cold exposure could definitely be beneficial for our immunity, I don't think 90 seconds of slightly cold water in a shower in the morning is going to make all that much difference. And this is one of my issues with biohacking more broadly. We look at some studies, we look at some evidence, and we say, X behavior or X supplement causes Y benefit, so we must be doing it. How could we not be doing it? And no matter how robust the data, no matter how good the studies and how many of them there are, even if it's unquestionable, you just can't do everything. And just because something can be beneficial for you doesn't mean you have to do it. Doesn't mean that it's going to change your life or change the world. Vegetables, extremely good for you. Nobody questions it, but you don't see very many TikTok posts or Instagram reels about vegetables because they're just not sexy. And there are so many of these biohacks now, whether you're lying on a spiky mat before bed, whether you're wearing blue blocking shades before bed, whether you're exposing yourself to red light therapy, whether you're taking saunas, whether you're having cold showers, whether you're meditating for 10 minutes or having power naps, and all these things might be great, but ultimately, if we chase after all of these things that are supposed to do us wonders, we're going to end up like some kind of person with OCD, or perhaps someone before a football game with all these different traditions they have to fill out. We're going to have to spin around in a circle 3 times, turn the light switch on 6 times, eat half an orange, and then scrub our eyeballs with some kind of powder, and then go to bed, and then do it all again. There's just not enough time in the day to do all these things. Likewise with supplements. Sure, this supplement increases magnesium. Sure, this supplement increases brain plasticity, so does this one and this one. This one's a great adaptogen, which is really good for combating stress, and this one increases L-theanine. This one increases serotonin, great for your feel-good hormones. This one's great for energy metabolism. This one's great for hypertrophy. But if you take all of them, you'll be spending an absolute fortune on different supplements, and trust me, I know. There's countless supplements that I highly recommend that are all fantastic. Lion's mane mushroom, omega-3 fatty acid, vitamin D, they're all fantastic, but you can't take all of them, so it's much better to just eat a balanced diet. And remember that all these things are just 5% improvements, 10% improvements, if that, usually a 0.1% improvement that you could get from doing something else. And that's why I don't think we can be chasing after every single thing that sounds great on paper, but in reality isn't going to make a huge difference to your life, other than to just spend an awful lot of time. But I don't want you to take all this as me completely disregarding the usefulness of cold exposure. That's not what's happening here at all. So with this, I haven't even managed to get the temperature as cold as you should do for a real ice bath, but it's still definitely really cold and a shock to the system. It's entirely different than a cold shower. What I really like about stuff like the Wim Hof method is that you're shocking your body, you're creating this adrenal response and then trying to control your nervous system to get that under control and to cope with it. This is hard work, by the way. That's something I'm really interested in, and Wim Hof will combine cold showers with his breathing techniques to achieve something similar, but the cold shower on its own really isn't going to get you there to the same degree. Some commenters said to me that Batman would take cold showers and so I should just do it as well, but I say nah, Batman would meditate under a waterfall. This isn't just a hack that anyone can try to squeeze into their day though, this is a practice that you need to cultivate and work at just like anything else. And unfortunately for a lot of people, taking regular ice baths, unless you've got somewhere local that offers it, it's just not super practical. Filling this thing up took me forever. It took bags of ice, which still weren't enough. And yeah, just the sheer amount of water you'd be using means unfortunately this is off limits for most people. And whilst it's certainly cool to be able to control your nervous system, I don't know that it's something that literally everybody needs to be doing. Let's take the plunge. Recently I tried cold water exposure at Bournemouth Beach in January. That was 3 degrees. That was much closer to what a real ice bath should feel like, and that was after going in a really, really hot sauna. You'll be able to see why I was doing that very soon. Imagine putting the whole body in that wouldn't be nice, would it? No. It wasn't. All the ice has melted though. Cold showers on their own, practiced for a few minutes, aren't going to teach you to master your nervous system. This is another reason I raise my eyebrows at this whole expose yourself to hardship spiel. This isn't a bed of hot coals, it's mildly annoying at best. Likewise, true cold exposure can be very beneficial when combined with heat exposure via a sauna. Again, this isn't a hack though, it's an actual practice or lifestyle change that takes time and effort, like training. So yeah, for all these reasons, I maintain that cold showers are a bit overrated, sorry. Cold exposure is great when it's an ice bath, even better when combined with the Wim Hof method, but this takes time and research. And used as a biohack to quickly improve your productivity, your mood, your weight, your testosterone, the effects of a 90-second cold shower isn't going to be huge. Most of us don't have time to set up an ice bath at home on a regular basis, especially when we're also supposed to be getting 10 minutes of red light exposure and 10 minutes of sauna and 10 minutes of meditation. It's just a bit out of touch. We need to pick what's going to have the biggest impact, the biggest bang for the buck, and probably what's fun as well. And usually that means the basics. It means exercising, it means sleeping right, and it means eating well. The rest are just bonuses if we have time. If you don't have the discipline to stick to your workouts, don't beat yourself up. Try making your workouts more fun. Maybe look at your lifestyle and ask why you're so tired and demotivated to begin with. Try making your workouts easier. Try being kinder to yourself. The aim of this video was never to dissuade anyone who finds cold showers genuinely useful. Individual differences are huge, and if you have low dopamine or a high number of receptors in the right areas, if you have low sperm production or you just like the feeling of cold water, then that's all great. Everybody should probably try this once. But I wanted to make this video because this has gotten out of hand. People preaching that cold showers can 10 times your testosterone, burn fat and fix your depression are, intentionally or not, overselling it. And this idea that cold showers are indisputably amazing for you, so you're just being a wuss if you don't take them, is just wrong and misguided. Maybe we shouldn't take ourselves so seriously. Maybe we shouldn't take showers so seriously. I hope you found this video useful and interesting, guys. If you did, please leave a like. I imagine it's going to get a bit of flack, so it'd be great to balance that out if possible. If you want to see more like this, then please subscribe, and if you're interested in using training methods and other strategies that can improve every aspect of your performance, from strength to mobility to cognition, then you might enjoy my ebook and training program, Super Functional Training 2.0, the Protein Performance System. There's a link to that in the description down below. It's an 80+ page ebook and over 2 hours of instructional video. Either way, thanks so much for watching this one, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. So this video was sponsored by Squarespace. For those of you who don't know, Squarespace is a website building platform that makes it extremely easy for anybody to build a fully functional website. You don't need to know how to code, you don't need any experience. It makes it extremely simple to build something functional that also looks modern and attractive and that will work on any device. You can literally have a website up in minutes, but at the same time, Squarespace is used by some of the biggest brands on the web because it's endlessly expandable. Just some of the features include formatting tools. You can write blog posts, you can schedule posts for later. There's a fully integrated commenting system with threaded comments, likes and replies. You can manage your community thanks to tons of membership settings and features. Integrate social media so that your posts display directly on your website, and generate revenue thanks to members-only gated content. Use the powerful e-commerce tools to sell products directly from your website. And if you need more features, then Squarespace will let you add a huge number of different plugins to essentially enhance the features of your site. For e-commerce, for example, that means everything from accounting to global shipping to inventory management. Whatever you need, there's a plugin for it if there isn't already the feature built in. Head over to squarespace.com if you want to learn more, or head to squarespace.com/Bioneer if you're ready to get started. And if you follow that link, then Bioneer viewers will also be able to get 10% off of their first website or domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Bye for now.